Hey, what's up, guys? So I said I was gonna do a top five list, but I'm gonna do a top five list with the caveat of I took a bunch of cards and stuck them in honorable mention, which we'll see in a second, because if I didn't, this list would just be really boring. So the cards I'm putting all in honorable mention are gonna be all the Nexus Elestrals. So there's one for each element. We have Exaltair. Now Exaltair is great because it's kind of a combo aggro finisher. Really strong if you can clear your opponent's board out. Aeolus, Nexus, two spirits to it. Burn them for two, then attack for another 3 for 5 damage. Pretty strong. Spark it. It's got good attack stats. Can let you see your opponent's hand and remove their biggest threat. Aphros is a huge draw engine. It's really strong because of that draw engine. You get out with a foamy, so you have something to play next turn, and then you just start drawing cards with it. You get two of these out, you probably win the game. Kinleo is some premium removal. You can use this with something like Amphirex to constantly kind of Nexus to destroy stuff. You're spending a lot of resources to do that, but it keeps your board control. Equalinx disrupts all your opponent's back row, which is very strong, and it's got good stats. So those are all honorable mentions because if they weren't, this would be the top five list would be a bunch of Nexus Elestrals and my number one pick. So I wanted to take those, put them aside. They're all very strong. They'd all be in the top 10, bar none. They're all very good because that Nexus ability, although Nexusing does require some extra board state, the abilities can be repeated if you can keep them alive, and they're very strong because of that. So now let's jump into my actual top five. And this one's probably the most contentious of all of them. I put Riceros as number five. The reason Riceros is number five for me is because Thunder doesn't have five attackers. So in order to get over Riceros on turn one, you are required to run Thunder in your deck, or you're to misenchant a five attacker. And if you are running Thunder in your deck, your Thunder Elestrals don't have enough attack to get over Riceros, making it probably just one of the best cards to stall. I think it's better than like a foamy for your next turn. It's really strong because it just says attacks are stopped. You'll then get the ability to now answer your opponent's attackers before they can attack with them. And that does a lot of work. So I think Riceros contentious, but I do think I want to call out I think it's gonna be a very strong card in the Thunder decks. If you're running Thunder, you should definitely be running a Riceros or two minimum because it does have potential to just come out middle to early to mid game. It just stops everything in its tracks from attacking. And you're just playing defense, and they can't use their counter runes to remove it because you're not going to attack with it or whatnot unless they play Poison Tip Arrow. It's a very solid just stop for a turn stall. Very good because of that. Everything else on this list, I think, is going to be everyone's will have these cards in their top five by like it's no contest. These are like really strong cards, 100%. The next card, Aeolus, even after it got nerfed. So if you guys didn't know, Aeolus used to be enchant up to 4, disenchant 1 to search for a 1-cost Wind Elestral. If you know anything about the 1-cost Wind Elestrals, is they are extremely varied and have really good abilities. So you could get a Pigus to destroy runes, you could get a Sorlet to attack into things or switch things into attack or defense. You could get an Aramare if you just wanted a tempo body. You could get a Nimbug if you wanted to go into your Sirikun combo. You could get a Hydrake if you wanted to go into your Pantera combo. Like, there's just options for disrupting runes, disrupting Elestrals, comboing up. So Aeolus, even at a 2 disenchant cost, it's just go search for whatever you need in the moment to do the most impact. So you play Aeolus, and it's like, oh, they have a back row, let me get Picust. You play Aeolus, oh, they have an open board, let me go get Exaltair, and then they'll Nexus the extra 2 and deal 5 damage right now out of nowhere. Aeolus is really strong because Wind is very strong. Or not very strong, but because it has so many options, so many good options. And it's a card that will only get better with time as we see more and more Wind 1-drops that are strong. Aeolus, very, very powerful. It is number 4. You could potentially put it higher, but I think 4 is a good spot for it because it does cost a lot now at Disenchant 2, but it can still be played as a 2-cost search for a 1-cost answer, which is very strong. Compare that to Nog, which is draw 2. This is 2, search 1 with some restriction. I think that's a fair balance, but it's a very strong card still. Next up, we have Tsunami. Tsunami is one of the best ways to stop attacks in your counter row, or your rune row, I should say. So Tsunami will just stop everything but water enchanted Elestrals. Not a lot of decks that want to attack consistently play water, except for the water focused decks. So a lot of people splash Tsunami, no pun intended, into their other elements with 1 Leviathan or 2 Leviathan in their deck, just to use Tsunami's ability to just tap stuff in an advanced position. Putting stuff in defense is just, especially your opponent goes battle phase start, okay, start your battle phase, chain Tsunami, make everything go in defense. Well, their battle phase is going to be over. And now most of their attackers, which have low defense and usually high attack, are now kind of open to get picked apart by your cards. So Tsunami is a great way to protect your stuff by putting stuff in defense, get rid of stuff on your next turn by putting stuff into defense so you can attack over their defense. And it did get nerfed a little bit, where it used to say that the position couldn't change until the end of turn. So it got a nerf, which means it was a strong card. Going off the Aeolus example. But this is, I think, is better than Aeolus because it's way more splashable in other elements, where Aeolus kind of requires a majority win deck to play. So Tsunami, very strong. Pseudo removal, great at stopping combat. Overall, very good card. Number 3 on my list is a new card. Or are we at number 2 already? Number 2 on the list. Drops of Lethe. So, Drops of Lethe is, I think, the best draw card in the game. So it's a 1-cost rune. Reveal any number of cards from your hand, shuffle it to your deck, and draw that many +1. So that many +1 means you're also replacing Drops of Lethe. This card is just, at worst, it's a 1-cost draw 1, which, yeah, it's not good. But at least it's playable at, 1. At 1 cost and 1 card in hand, it is a 1-cost draw 2. 1-cost draw 3 is usually where it kind of sits at the cost of revealing some cards to your opponent. So if it's turn 1 and you play Drops of Lethe, you can reveal a bunch of cards in your hand, and your opponent now knows what deck you're probably playing. But you just shuffled away all the cards you don't need for your matchup and drew a new set of cards. The only time this card is bad is if you have no cards in hand. Because even if you have 1 card in hand you draw into this top deck, you just pay 1 and go draw 2 new cards. This card is really, really strong. It's obviously a little random. You do have to send cards back from your hand. Sometimes you might send something you need later, but I don't really see too many reasons to run a lot of Nectar of Gods when you have this card to play instead. Very, very powerful. It's card neutral. It's 1 spirit to play to just find a new hand. You don't have answers, go find a new hand. You're trying to combo, you didn't get your combo piece, go find a new hand. You don't need 2 cards in this matchup because they're just dead cards. Cycle them back into your deck, draw some new cards in their place. It's very good. I really can't state how strong this card is without showing you gameplay, and that's not what this video is about. The card does a lot of work, and it gets very strong. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets nerfed. There's probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 more card changes before final printing and cards are set in stone, but it's a very strong card. And then my top cards, I say cards because I kind of like with the next Elestrals, if I had these both on the list in their own slots, it would cause chaos because the list would have just been these 2 cards and Elestrals. So Poison Tipped Arrow, Shield of Achilles. So Shield of Achilles, 2-cost counter rune. When your opponent declares an Elestral's attack, negate the attack, return the Elestrals to their hand. It does not target, which makes it get around almost every form of protection. And Poison Tipped Arrow, when an opponent casts an Elestral, you can target it to give it -2 attack, and at the end phase, you can expend 1 to destroy the Elestral. So it's basically a 2-cost destroy an Elestral on your opponent's turn, but they get the Elestral until the end of turn. Both of these are really powerful removal cards on your opponent's turn. So once you start your turn, your opponent's already down bodies on board, and you can kind of go into your gameplay from there. Poison Tipped Arrow is great because it triggers before your opponent can empower artifacts and stuff to start protecting things. And it just destroys it outright. Shield is great. Probably Shield is a touch better because it returns to hand. So if they have a big thing like a Majesty that they ram down on turn 1, you just go, all right, Majesty, see you later. Good luck getting it out again. It costs 3. You just lost your spirits. They're more often than not going to be spirit neutral between you and your opponent. And quite often they're going to be advantageous for you in total card economy, because if they ramp something out, let's say turn 1 they did tap off into Majesty with Obsidian in play, using a shield on that Majesty, let's say, or using this Poison Tipped on that Majesty, is 1 card for their Tadpuff and their Majesty effectively, and all those spirits they used. Using shield is 1 card for, again, all the cards they use to get those big things out. So they're super efficient, they are very strong, and they deal with a lot of things, especially that shield that doesn't target. So Poison Tipped Arrow, Shield of Achilles, combined, the number 1. They do mostly the same thing. So I put them together at number 1 because I don't think that I should make a list that just says Nexus Celestial, Nexus Celestial, Nexus Celestial, Poison Tip, Shield. So that's my list for the best cards right now. Tell me why you think or do not think that Riceros should be on this list if you get to this point. I personally think Riceros is being slept on. I think it's a very strong card. I've used it in many decks, and it's never really disappointed me. So this is my top 5 list. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. It's free. I'm making content for free for you. Support me in a way that I appreciate, which is bigger numbers make me feel good. See you later. Peace.